Hey guys, so we are in Unit 3 where we're talking about plants. Today we're talking about anatomy of plants. Anatomy is basically just the parts of the plant. So we're going to talk about those, the different parts of a plant, which are root, stem, leaf, flower, and fruit. Not every plant's going to have all of these parts. Not all plants are going to have a flower or fruit, but they all have a root, stem, and a leaf. So this is a tomato plant. And it's going to have all of those. So it's going to show you. It's got the root system, a stem, which is the base. It's going to hold everything. Leaves, fruit. Yes, tomato is a fruit. It is not a vegetable. And flowers. Okay. If you've never grown tomatoes, you may not know that they have flowers, but they do. The flowers are what ends up turning into the tomato. All right, it says each part plays a critical role in the life cycle of the plant, and that is very true. So the most important part of the plant are the roots. Okay, roots are very important. They're how the plants get their water. They're how their plants also get their food. They anchor the plant to the ground or the other surface. Not all plants grow in the ground. Some grow in the side of buildings, but those roots are what anchor it. They aid with some types of reproduction. So very, very important are roots. So a few species have roots above the ground, like poison ivy. Those are called adventitious roots. So make sure you know that adventitious roots are where they form a part of the plant other than the root. And they are common in climbing plants. So a lot of your ivies are going to have those. So those are the roots. And these are really easy to transplant. You can just, well, obviously poison ivy you don't want to, but other ivies you can cut a piece off, stick it in the ground, and it's going to grow pretty easily because of that root system that it has. Okay, the main type of roots, we've got taproot and fibrous. So taproots are thick, and they grow directly from the stem of the plant. Okay, they don't spread out under the ground. So this is a really good picture of a taproot. Okay, that's one singular taproot right there. Carrots and beets are good examples of taproots. How a carrot is grown. A carrot is under the ground. You pull it out. The carrot itself is the taproot. Okay, fibrous. Fibrous roots, they spread out. So grasses are really popular. If you've ever dealt with Remuda grass, whenever you pick it, it just seems to go and go and go. That's because those roots like to spread. A lot of cover crops are going to have fibrous roots. Or we talked about last unit, cover crops are really good with preventing soil loss. And they do help prevent erosion because they spread out so fast. So here's a good picture that shows the difference. See how taproot is one big taproot long, so they've got a dandelion. And these are, think about if you've ever picked weeds or anything, pick a plant. If it just pops right out of the ground and it's the whole plant, you got it, a single system, most likely that's a taproot. If you pick it out of the ground and it's connected to a bunch of different plants, or you get a huge root system of these thin little roots, that's fibrous. So make sure you know the difference between those. Grasses are most common for fibrous. All right, so then we've got stems. So stems are just as important. Most common stems are visible portion of plants that support leaves, flowers, and roots. However, they also have some unexpected forms. So it says stems are like the circulatory system for the human body and the skeleton all in one. So they help provide support and they help with the flow of things. They are what gets that water and food from the roots to the fruit of that plant or to the leaves or to the flowers. So they've got to be really sturdy to hold leaves, flowers, and fruit. Although they often are not visually appealing parts, they're a really vital role. They store nutrients and they can produce new living tissue. So buds can come off of that stem. So there's two main types, woody stem. Those are the harsher ones. Those are going to be like in bushes. They have woody stems. A lot of your more hardy plants are going to have these. Obviously trees. They can survive winter temperatures because they're more hardy. Some include bark, like a tree. or a branch. Herbaceous stems are green. They're succulent. Think of your flowers. They're going to have herbaceous stems. They store water or sap. They don't really survive in cold temperatures. These are the most common types of stems. So it says that stems have their own anatomy. The most common one is nodes. So you can see right there it says nodes. That's where the different leaves or flowers are going to branch out from the node of a stem. Okay, that's new growth equals a node. Okay, it talks about a potato. A potato's different. It's called a tuber. So the potato is basically a stem that you eat. It's thick and underground stem, and it stores carbs, which was a potato, mostly carb. Tubers are sweet potatoes, yams, and jicama. Another unusual type is a corm, which is thick, compact, and fleshy stem. Onions have corms. So you can see the hair protrusions from the bottom. Those are the roots. If you leave the onion sitting there too long, it'll produce new growth. So those are examples of plants where the stem is under the ground. So next you've got leaves. Leaves are very important because, like we know, they are what's going to convert light from the sun to energy to the plant. So they turn light to food, or what the leaves do. Leaves are very, very important. Okay, so plants can also, they move, whether you think they do or not. They are living things. So a sunflower is a really good example of a plant that moves to face the sunlight. This is all to survive. Plants are survivors, and they're going to shift positions to access the best light for their plant, for the leaves to convert it to food. So make sure you know phototropism. That's what that is. Think of photo going to the light. Photo means light. Tropism, moving to it. Process of converting energy into fuel is photosynthesis. You should know this. Okay, so this is where it involves chlorophyll, which is that green material in the leaves and stems of plants. Light's going to interact with chlorophyll, carbon dioxide, and water, change it to glucose, which we know as sugar, oxygen, and water. The glucose is going to supply the energy to the roots from the stem. So this is very, very important. Plants need the right amount of light for photosynthesis to work. Not all plants are the same. That's why some plants can grow indoors well and some cannot. So there we've got a picture of how the plant is grown, how it converts with photosynthesis. So it takes the light and carbon dioxide and oxygen, and it's going to change it into sugar, carbohydrates, and it's going to go down and feed that flower. Temperature is really important as well. Plants like it 65 to 85, just like me. Too hot or too cold, it's going to stop. That's why when it gets really hot in Texas, July, August, we don't see as well of plant growth, same as in the wintertime. All right, so that's basic. That's a really basic and quick anatomy lesson on those plants. I've included a video also on here that I wish y'all would have watched that really goes into detail about the anatomy of plants. So plants are classified different ways. They're classified these different ways. So there's land plants or green algae. Algae is a plant. It's the most prevalent plant that we have. Non-vascular and vascular plants. Non-vascular is going to be mosses, liverworts, hornworts. Vascular, or plants that have specialized tissue to transport water, are going to be like your ferns, flowering plants. Most plants you see are going to be vascular. Plants with stems, basically. So vascular plants are divided further into seed-bearing or spore-bearing. Okay, seed is really going to have flowering plants, sperms, gymnosperms, including conifers, which use cones to protect the seeds, like your trees, pine trees. And then there's ag classification based on use. So we've got cereal plants, legumes, roots, tubers, like our potatoes, vegetables, fruits, beverage crops, tea, cocoa, coffee, spices, oil, all of those. There's land cover, so that's going to be like your trees, woody shrubs, grasses, and by temperature. Different plants are classified by tropical, subtropical, warm season, cool season, tender, and hardy. So there's a lot of different categories that plants have. They can be so different, and there's a plant for everything. So not all plants are going to have these next anatomy parts, but some will have flowers or fruit. So flowers are the most popular ornamental plants. It improves appearance. Do the flowers do this for our benefit? No, they do it for pollinators, right? So the pretty colors are going to attract the pollinators, and that's how they're going to reproduce. So those bright colors that characterize most flowers are there to attract insects. So is the aroma. So that's not for our benefit. Those are for the pollinators. Particularly bees and others, like hummingbirds, that facilitate pollination, which is the process of moving pollen from an anther to the stigma. And so the anther is the flower part that makes the pollen, and the stigma is the part that receives the pollen. Yes, there are female and male plants. There are some plants that have both female and male parts. After pollination, the pollen fuses with the egg, and that's fertilization or sexual reproduction. That's how we get new plants. So pollen can be picked up and carried whenever it's really high and the windy. That's whenever it makes my nose itch. Moving pollen from one plant to another is cross-pollination. Plants can fertilize themselves, and some can self-pollinate and cross-pollinate. So again, it's all dependent. This is a really good picture of pollination. This is a dandelion. You've probably seen this, and when you were little, you took it and you blew off those little pieces. Those are actually seeds that you're doing. So you are helping pollinate those dandelions when you do that. Plants have really cool ways of pollinating. And there are lots of different plants for lots of different reasons. So that's a really quick overview of the anatomy of plants. Again, watch that video that I posted on YouTube about it, and hopefully it'll explain it better.